The bell above my bookstore door chimed softly as I flipped the sign to closed. Another quiet Sunday at Jasmine's Books, my small corner of literary heaven nestled between a coffee shop and a vintage clothing store. The evening sun cast long shadows across shelves of carefully curated books, each one personally selected, each spine holding not just stories, but possibilities. My phone buzzed, a reminder about tonight's family dinner. I sighed, already dreading the familiar pattern of subtle insults and condescending remarks that awaited me at my parents' upscale penthouse. I changed into a simple blue dress, leaving my Jasmine's Books name on the counter. No point in dressing up when nothing I wore would ever be good enough for them anyway. The elevator ride to the 47th floor felt endless. My sister Victoria's voice carried through the hallway before I even reached their door. The merger is worth $80 million. Can you believe it? I slipped inside quietly, but not quietly enough to avoid my brother Andrew's notice. Well, look who finally showed up. How's the little bookshop, Jasmine? Still managing to keep the lights on. The store's doing fine, I replied, hanging my coat by the door. At 32, I was the youngest of 3 siblings and, according to my family, the only failure. My mother emerged from the kitchen, perfect makeup and designer dress making me feel even more underdressed. Jasmine, darling, you look tired. Running that little shop must be so exhausting. If she only knew that I'd spent my morning on a conference call with investment bankers, orchestrating a deal worth more than her entire penthouse. But I just smiled and took my usual seat at the massive dining table. Victoria couldn't wait to dominate the conversation. So the merger with Global Tech is almost finalized. Once it goes through, I'll be named Senior Vice President of Operations. That's wonderful, sweetheart, my father beamed. He turned to me, his smile fading slightly. Jasmine, have you given any thought to selling the bookstore? Andrew knows some real estate developers who might be interested in that location. I took a sip of wine to hide my expression. Those developers worked for one of my investment companies, though of course my family didn't know that. I'm happy with the store, I said simply. Books are my passion. Andrew snorted. Passion doesn't pay the bills, little sister. While you're playing shopkeeper, Victoria and I are making real moves in the business world. If they only knew about the empire I built while playing shopkeeper. My small bookstore was just the tip of a very large, very profitable iceberg. It had started 7 years ago, shortly after I opened Jasmine's Books. A regular customer, an elderly man named Mr. Chen, would spend hours in the philosophy section, occasionally sharing his wisdom about life and investments. What my family didn't know was that Mr. Chen was one of the most successful private investors in the country. One day, he looked up from his book and said, "You understand people, Jasmine. You know what they want to read, what moves them. Have you ever thought about applying that understanding to investments?" That conversation changed everything. Mr. Chen became my mentor, teaching me to see patterns in markets that others missed. I started small, investing my modest savings in carefully chosen startups and undervalued companies. My first major success came when I spotted a small tech company that had developed an innovative payment processing system. I invested everything I had, then watched as the company's value multiplied tenfold in 18 months. I reinvested those profits, building a diverse portfolio that soon became Jade Capital Partners, named after my favorite shade of green. Though officially listed under a series of shell companies, no one knew that the quiet bookstore owner was the founder and CEO of a billion-dollar investment firm. While my siblings bragged about their corporate titles and million-dollar deals, I was quietly acquiring controlling interests in companies across multiple industries. My network of investments now included technology firms, real estate developments, and yes, even some publishing houses. Earth to Jasmine. Victoria's sharp voice pulled me from my thoughts. Were you even listening? I was telling everyone about my new beach house. Sorry, just thinking about tomorrow's inventory. I mumbled, playing my part. We're getting a new shipment of classics. My mother sighed dramatically. Darling, you're not getting any younger. Don't you want more from life than just books? I thought about the 3 homes I owned, including a private island off the coast of Greece. I'm content, Mom. Content? Andrew scoffed. That's just another word for settling. While you're contentedly selling paperbacks, I'm closing a deal that will revolutionize the real estate market. I hid a smile, knowing that the revolutionary deal he was so proud of was actually being financed through one of my subsidiary companies. He had no idea he'd been negotiating with his little sister's firm for the past 3 months. The rest of dinner passed in its usual pattern. Victoria and Andrew competing to showcase their success. My parents beaming with pride at their accomplished children, and everyone taking turns expressing concern about my modest lifestyle. "I just worry about your future," my mother said as I prepared to leave. "You can't run a tiny bookstore forever." If she could see my investment portfolio, she might worry less. But I just hugged her goodbye and headed home, not to my apparent small apartment above the bookstore, but to my real home, a penthouse that made my parents' place look modest. As I walked into my private office, screens came to life showing market data from Asian exchanges. My actual workday was just beginning. While my family thought I spent my evenings reading novels, I was managing a global investment empire. Tomorrow would change everything. Victoria's precious merger, Andrew's revolutionary real estate deal. They were both about to collapse. Not because I planned it that way, but because my siblings had built their success on appearances rather than solid business principles. When the market opened tomorrow, they would discover that their companies were worth far less than they claimed, and when they desperately needed help, they would learn that the only person who could save them was the sister they dismissed as a simple bookstore owner. I poured myself a glass of scotch, the same rare brand my father loved to brag about, though mine was a much better vintage, and settled in for a night of work. The screens before me told a story more compelling than any novel. The story of an empire built in silence, of power wielded with purpose rather than pride. The bell above my bookstore would chime again tomorrow morning, welcoming another day of apparent simplicity. But tonight, I was orchestrating moves that would reshape my family's understanding of success. They thought I was wasting my time with books. They were about to learn that the greatest stories aren't always the ones you can read on a page. The morning everything changed, I was arranging a new window display at Jasmine's Books. My phone buzzed constantly, market alerts, frantic messages from Victoria and Andrew, missed calls from my parents. I let them all go unanswered, calmly placing each book in perfect position. The financial world was in chaos. Global tech stock had plummeted 60% overnight after whistleblowers revealed massive accounting irregularities. Victoria's merger was dead in the water. Meanwhile, Andrew's real estate empire was crumbling as his overleveraged positions came due. The bell above my door chimed. I turned to find Victoria standing there, her designer suit wrinkled, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. "Jasmine," she gasped, "everything's falling apart. I need somewhere to hide. The reporters are everywhere." I gestured to my reading nook, where comfortable armchairs offered sanctuary among shelves of classic literature. Victoria collapsed into one, her composure completely shattered. "The merger's dead," she whispered. "My career is over. I don't know what to do." The bell chimed again. This time it was Andrew, looking equally disheveled. "You won't believe what's happening," he started, then stopped short at the sight of Victoria. "You too?" I calmly walked to the door, flipped the sign to close, and locked up. "I think we need to talk." "Talk?" Andrew laughed bitterly. "What could you possibly say? While you've been playing with your little bookstore, the real business world is collapsing." I walked to my office in the back, returning with 3 folders. "Actually, I have quite a lot to say. But first, I need you both to read these." They opened the folders. Inside were documents showing Jade Capital Partners' ownership stakes in their companies, along with detailed reports of their mismanagement and financial manipulation. "What is this?" Victoria's voice shook. "How did you get these documents?" "Because I own them," I said simply. "I own the documents, significant portions of your companies, and about 30% of the building we're sitting in." Andrew's face turned red. "That's impossible. Jade Capital is worth billions. They're the ones who've been financing my real estate projects." "Yes," I nodded. "I know. I'm the one who approved those loans." Silence fell, broken only by the gentle whir of the ceiling fan and distant traffic outside. My siblings stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You," Victoria whispered. "You're behind Jade Capital." I took a seat behind my desk, an antique piece worth more than most cars. "Did you ever wonder why I chose this location for my bookstore? This building is owned by one of my holding companies. That coffee shop next door, also mine. I own most of this block." But, but you're just a bookstore owner, Andrew sputtered. No, I corrected him. I'm a bookstore owner who also happens to run one of the largest private investment firms in the country. The bookstore isn't a fallback or a hobby. It's the heart of everything I do. It reminds me why I started investing in the first place. I pressed a button under my desk. The back wall of my office slid aside, revealing a state-of-the-art trading floor. Screens displayed real-time market data, news feeds, and investment analytics. While you were bragging about your millions, I continued, I was quietly building billions. Every time you mocked my little bookstore, I was probably financing your competitors or buying controlling interests in your partners. Victoria stood up, swaying slightly. Why? Why keep this secret? Why let us treat you like a failure? I finished for her, because success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about doing what you love and doing it well. I love books. They taught me to see patterns, understand human nature, and recognize value where others see nothing. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered, putting it on speaker. Yes, Mr. Chen. My old mentor's voice filled the room. The board is ready, Jasmine. Shall we proceed with the acquisitions? Yes, I replied, watching my siblings' faces. Execute as planned. After I hung up, Andrew found his voice. What acquisitions? Jade Capital is buying controlling interest in both your companies, I explained. At a very generous premium, considering their current market value is essentially zero. You'll both retain your titles, but the actual management will be handled by my team. You're taking over our companies? Victoria's voice rose hysterically. I'm saving them, I corrected her. Though you might want to check your messages. I believe the board has already voted to accept Jade Capital's offer. Just then, our parents burst through the front door of the bookstore, looking panicked. Victoria, Andrew, we just heard. They stopped short at the sight of my revealed office. My mother's hand flew to her throat. My father's face went pale. Hello, Mom, Dad, I said calmly. We were just discussing some business matters. Would you like to join us? The next hour was surreal. I explained everything. How I'd built Jade Capital from scratch. How I'd watched my siblings' companies implode through reckless management. How I positioned myself to save them while teaching them a valuable lesson. All those times we criticized you, my mother whispered. You were worth more than all of us combined. Money isn't everything, I reminded her, gesturing to my beloved bookstore. This place, these books, they're what make me happy. The success of Jade Capital just proves that you can build something extraordinary without sacrificing your passion. My father cleared his throat. But why keep running the bookstore? You don't need to. I don't need to do anything, I cut him off. I choose to run this store because it matters to me. Every person who walks out of here with a book that might change their life. That matters more than any merger or acquisition. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Victoria and Andrew learned humility as they worked under Jade Capital's management. My parents stopped pushing their version of success on me. The bookstore remained my sanctuary, though now they understood it was just one chapter in a much larger story. Mr. Chen visited more often, still browsing the philosophy section, still sharing his wisdom. One day, he smiled at me over his book and said, You've taught them the greatest lesson of all. That true success isn't about what you show the world, but about staying true to yourself. I looked around my bookstore at the shelves of stories that had inspired me, at the reading nook where children discovered new worlds, at the antique desk where I built an empire. You know what the best part is? I told him, I still get to read the best stories first. Today, Jade Capital continues to grow, but I still open the bookstore every morning. My siblings have learned to measure success differently, and my parents finally understand that the quietest person in the room might just be the most successful. And me? I'm exactly where I want to be, surrounded by books, building empires both literary and financial, proving that you should never judge a book or a person by its cover.